Good evening and welcome back to Empty Cloud Monastery. My name is Bhante Suddhāso and we'll be looking at another discourse of the Buddha. This is from the Anguttara Nikaya, chapter 4, sutta number 94, the Tatiyasamādhisutta. So I'll start with homage to the Buddha and then I'll read through the discourse and give some explanations, and you can type in questions at any time and I'll answer them at the end. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. So as mentioned, this is the Tatiyasamādhisutta from the Anguttara Nikaya, chapter 4, sutta number 94. So Tatiyasamādhisutta means the third discourse on samadhi. So this is presumably from a series of short suttas talking about samadhi. And I'll be reading here from Bhante Suddhāso's translation, though I'll likely make some adjustments and comments as I go along. So the discourse begins. The Buddha says, "Monks, these four people are found in the world. What for? One person has internal serenity of mind, but not the higher wisdom of discernment of Dhamma. One person has the higher wisdom of discernment of Dhamma, but not internal serenity of mind. One person has neither internal serenity of mind nor the higher wisdom of discernment of Dhamma. And one person has both internal serenity of mind and the higher wisdom of discernment of Dhamma." So this is the opening thing here. So the Buddha is laying out four kinds of people based around whether or not they have two qualities. So the first one in Pali is called Ajjata Ceto Samatha. So Ajjata means normally it's translated as internal, which is a good translation in most contexts. It also has the meaning of personal or individual. So it's actually from the anyway. So it has the meaning of again internal, but also the meaning of personal or individual. And Ceto Samatha, we have Ceto, which is the word which it's related to the word chitta, which means mind, sometimes translated as heart in some contexts. Though in Buddhism we don't make a clear distinction between mind and heart as we commonly use these words in English. So it's just the mental faculties of being, which includes the emotional aspect of mind. So again, Ceto means mind, and Samatha means peacefulness, or serenity or tranquility. So Ajjata Ceto Samatha means the internal serenity of mind, the internal peacefulness of mind, which in the suttas is commonly connected with samadhi practice. It's commonly connected with the development of a mind which is stable, still, unified, collected, undistracted. So the cultivation of serenity of mind, serenity of heart, which then allows the mind to become completely still and stable and unified. And the other quality he's talking about here in Pali says Adipanya Dhamma Vipassana. So Adipanya, the prefix Adi means higher or lofty, extreme, superior. And Panya is commonly translated as wisdom or as discernment. So Panya is ultimately what Buddhist practice is all about. It's about cultivating the wisdom which clearly perceives reality, the wisdom which perceives reality accurately, the wisdom which knows and sees things as they really are. And in particular, the wisdom which knows and sees the cause of all dukkha, the cause of all of our suffering, which clearly sees the impermanent, transient, unstable, and empty nature of all phenomena, and the wisdom which clearly sees that all things are impersonal, that ultimately there is no true self to be found in any existent phenomena. And So adipanya then is the higher wisdom, the higher discernment, the superior wisdom, the highest wisdom. So here again, he's talking about something quite lofty. So this isn't just the ordinary kind of wisdom that we talk about, like when we say like, oh, you're so wise. But rather we're talking about the wisdom which clearly sees the three characteristics, the characteristics of anicca, dukkha, anatta. The wisdom which clearly understands the Four Noble Truths. The wisdom which clearly sees the path to awakening. And then the second part of this word compound is Dhamma Vipassana. So Dhamma is a very multifaceted word. The most simple, basic meaning of the word Dhamma is it simply means thing, or phenomenon, or object. And often in the suttas it's used in this very simple way, just to mean a thing, or a phenomenon, or a principle, or an idea, or an object of any sort, whether physical or non-physical. The more common way that we use the word Dhamma outside of the Pali language is the word Dhamma means the teachings, especially the teachings of the Buddha. Dhamma can also have the meaning of fundamental truth. So Dhamma just meaning the way things are, so the fundamental, irrefutable truth of reality. So Dhamma meaning universal truth. And Vipassana is commonly translated in English as insight, which is not a bad translation. So Vipassana comes from the same root as the verb passati, which means to see, or to observe. So Vipassana means to clearly observe, clearly observing, or clearly perceiving reality. So seeing reality clearly and distinctly. So then there's a direct connection here between Vipassana, which means, again, seeing reality clearly, distinctly, and Panya, which is the wisdom which knows things as they are. The wisdom which knows reality on its own terms, without distortion or delusion. So here the Buddha is laying out these two different aspects of training the mind. So the first one is internal serenity of mind. So this cultivation of stillness, of peacefulness, of mental stability, and the cultivation of wisdom, the wisdom which clearly and directly sees the truth of reality, which clearly and directly sees the truth of the Buddhist teachings, which clearly and directly sees the universal principles of anicca, dukkha, anatta, of impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and non-self. And here the Buddha is laying out again four kinds of people. So somebody who has developed some serenity, so they have some mental serenity, some mental peacefulness, but they don't have the higher wisdom which clearly sees the Dhamma. And then somebody else who has cultivated this higher wisdom which clearly sees Dhamma, but they lack serenity of mind. And then somebody who has neither, and of course somebody who has both. So four kinds of people. And actually it's quite common in Buddhist circles to meet people who are more specialized in one or the other of these two qualities. So meeting people who are very peaceful, very calm, very equanimous, they're not bothered by much of anything. When they practice meditation, they can sit for long periods of time without any problems. They're quite happy, just sitting quietly and doing nothing. And when they do practice meditation, their mind becomes very quiet and peaceful. And then you meet other people who they have a sharp understanding of what the Buddha is talking about. When they read the suttas, they understand what the Buddha is talking about immediately. When they have discussions about the Dhamma, there's a clear and direct understanding of the underlying principles. And they're able to also see that in everyday life. So when something happens, they recognize, oh, this is dukkha. What's causing the dukkha? What's causing the dukkha is my own desire. So if I let go of the desire, then there'll be no more dukkha. Or again, they're able to clearly see the impermanent, ever-changing, impersonal nature of phenomena, and therefore not be so disturbed by things. So again, it's quite normal that practitioners will tend to focus more on one or the other. And you do also get people who have no particular development in either area, especially towards the beginning of one's practice. One might think, well, actually, I don't have either of those two qualities. And there are also particularly exceptional practitioners who have both qualities well developed. So then the Buddha gives advice for each of these four people. For the first one, he says, for the person who has serenity but not discernment. So this is the first category of person. He says, they should approach someone who has discernment, so someone who has this higher wisdom that clearly sees the Dhamma. The translation here shortens it, but in each statement it says a person who has internal serenity of mind, but not the higher wisdom which observes the Dhamma. He says they should approach someone who does have the higher wisdom that observes the Dhamma, and should ask them, Venerable, how should conditions be seen? How should they be comprehended? How should they be discerned? And the Pali word here that's translated as discern is vipassittabha, which is the future passive participle of the word vipassana. So how should things be clearly seen with wisdom? How should things be clearly seen with insight? So, and the Buddha says, that person would answer based on their own understanding. The Pali word here is yatha dittang yatha viditang. Yatha dittang means as they have seen it, and yatha viditang means as they have understood it. Bhante Suddhāso translated both those words simply as from one's own experience, but it's a bit more precise. It's as one has seen it and understood it. So he says, that person would answer as they have seen and understood it. This is how conditions should be seen, comprehended, and discerned. And the Buddha says, after some time, that person would have both serenity and discernment. So in this first case, it's like, well, okay, so you have some serenity of mind, maybe you have some good samadhi, but you haven't developed wisdom, you haven't developed insight. Well, what should you do? You should go to somebody who does have wisdom, who does have insight, someone who has made progress in developing the higher faculty of wisdom. And you should ask them how to develop that quality within yourself. And follow their instructions, follow their advice, so that you can cultivate the same strength that they have cultivated. And then the same, so for the person who has cultivated some degree of wisdom, of insight, but does not have much serenity of mind, the Buddha says they should approach someone who does have serenity and ask them, Venerable, how should the mind be stilled? How should the mind be settled? How should the mind be unified? How should the mind be brought into samadhi? And the Buddha says that person would answer as they have seen and understood it. This is how the mind should be stilled, settled, unified, and brought into samadhi. And after some time, the questioner would have both discernment and serenity. So again, very simple. If you have some degree of wisdom, but you're lacking in samadhi, lacking in serenity, then you should approach someone who actually has cultivated that quality and ask them how to practice that within yourself. And then he says, for the person who has neither serenity nor discernment, they should approach someone who has serenity and discernment and ask them. And he goes through all the questions before. How should the mind be stilled, settled, unified, and brought to samadhi? How should conditions be seen, comprehended, and discerned? And the Buddha says that person would answer as they have seen and understood it. And after some time, the questioner would have both serenity and discernment. So again, the emphasis the Buddha is really putting here is on asking for advice. So first off, evaluating your own mind, evaluating your own practice, checking to see, where are my shortcomings? What qualities have I not developed well? In particular, what qualities do I not know how to develop well? But even if you think you know how to develop something, if you still feel like you're falling short in that category, then you should go and ask for advice from people who seem to have more advancement in that quality of mind. Someone who seems further along in that quality. And this is a theme which runs throughout the suttas, which is the theme of going to experienced monks and asking for advice, going to experienced monks and asking questions, asking for them to indicate the next step on the path for you. So it's very difficult to do this path by ourselves, which is why the Buddha placed so much importance on the value of community life, the value of mutual instruction, the value of seeking advice, the value of being receptive to criticism. because these are all ways that we can make much swifter and surer progress towards awakening. And then for the fourth person, the Buddha says, as for the person who has both serenity and discernment, grounded in these wholesome qualities, they should practice meditation further to end their defilements. So very simple. If you already have mastery of these two qualities, then just keep practicing. Because such a person already knows how to make an end to suffering. They already know how to attain full awakening. They just need to keep working on the path. They just need to keep going forward. So that's the end of the sutta. We can respect the sutta with 3 sadhus. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And at this time, if there's any questions, I can answer some questions. First off, hello to the people checking in online. Hello to Bhumika, Gregory, Jason, Wasabi-chan, Maria, Janaki, and Ryan. Good to see all of you joining in. I don't see any questions, so I think we'll go ahead and conclude the session at this point. And if you have further questions, you can bring them to Monk Chat on Friday. So we'll end at this point with 3 more sadhus. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And we'll see you next time.